think I'll start my meeting by answering that question. The question was, I can't possibly imagine what you could be presenting because we covered everything pretty thoroughly on our committee. Well, when our committee convened, we were looking at a 9,600 square foot building. And we looked at the possibility of adding on to the library. And I don't know how many people recall, but I was pretty adamant about removing the language that the wetlands prevented us from adding on an addition. And there was quite a bit of debate about that. And in the end, in our report, that language was modified. So at the time, to try and produce 9,600 square feet would not have been as easy to do. And I was afraid that if I suggested an 8,600 square foot building, this one here, which I've known for quite some time, is quite doable, it might have influenced the whole outcome. I mean, we may have gotten some feedback about how we really couldn't do with anything less than 9,600 square feet. I could have been wrong on that assumption, and if I am, then I'll give you my apologies. But I was pretty sure that we were looking at trying to do 9,600 square feet, and my original proposal was just to move 9,600 square feet across the street to the Dearborn property. Of course, once we got started, things changed, they evolved. And we settled on an 8,200 square foot building over in the Dearborn lot. Okay, so I've remained quiet and I voted for the 8,200 square foot building, even though it had a flat roof. And I think that if we'd had a little bit more time and we had made it clear to the architects that a flat roof is a non-starter, maybe we would have come up with a different design, but that's what we went with. So I decided that perhaps the time is right to illustrate what we can do and what the cost would be, because when this 8,200 square foot building comes around in March, it's going to cost around $2.6 million, which was what the 9,600 square foot building cost when we voted on it several years ago. So we've lost 1,000 feet and we're paying the same price. So there's another problem that we keep running into, and that is the 66% vote threshold. It may be that someday they'll get a 66% vote. And if that's the case, if there are people in the library management that think they're going to get a 66% vote, why not just bring back your 9,600 square foot building? I mean, if you've got the votes to do it, what's a few $100,000 one way or the other? So my proposal here goes to the strength of the people that seem to consistently vote for a library, and that means it will just require a majority vote. The reason that it'll just require a majority vote is because what I've illustrated here will come in at about $1.3 million for 8,625 feet. That's 400 feet larger than the 8,200 square foot building. And we have currently $700,000. And in fact, I asked Jackie Rollins and Karen to look into the access for the $400,000 that the town has set aside for construction. And it sounds like we no longer have access to just $180,000, which is what the vote was back when Anna Nucci was chairman of the trustees. But we actually have access to the full $400,000 because of the way it was worded. And so that means, theoretically, if the selectmen want to get on board with this thing and the trustees want to get on board with this thing, we could actually start work right away. You could start putting in your driveway, and I've talked to Jack Parsons about this. He says that it's well within his capacities and duties that he's performed in the past to find somebody that could cut the trees and stump the land and put gravel down, which in my view would be a really good thing to do because it would demonstrate to the town that we're taking a practical approach to solving a problem. And it would tie in very nicely with the fundraising program that I understand is going to start shortly. When people start actually seeing some kind of construction going forward, they're more likely to want to donate because they think they're going to see the results of their donation. So it ties in really nice. And with $700,000 and an active campaign to raise more funds going on, I'm pretty certain that you could get all of your concrete work done and walls partially done and partially the roof done. What this allows you to do is to use the library continuously while this construction is going on. You could do it in stages. So if in March we realize that we're $400,000 or $500,000 short, we could create a warrant article, and with a simple majority vote, we could get the funds necessary to complete the job. We have in the past used warrant articles to buy a fire truck outright for $500,000. So it's not out of the norm for anybody to take this action. So what I've done here is established a base on cost and doability. With an architect involved, they could design a completely different roof. They could design it so that it gives you a great deal more headroom. They could use scissor truss. They can use supported ridge construction. You could do a number of things. Mine is just for simplicity and economy. You don't have to build this. But it does establish a base that I believe pretty clearly can get done for $1.3 million. So, what I've done is I've created this model. This is the current building, looking at it from the fire pond. These are the outside walls right here and here. This is the roof. That is this picture right here. I don't know if you can see it or not. So what I've done is I've taken this building, this 32 feet in width, and I've put it in front of the current building. And from the face of this building to the end of the blacktop is about 52 feet. So this width here is 32 feet. If it was put out here, you'd still have 20 feet of blacktop that you have not interfered with. Okay, this roof angle is the same. Just moved it out. This is the same pitch. It's a 6 pitch. And what this is showing you what a cantilevered truss looks like. This is actually the truss for this part of the roof. This is this design right here. Flip. And what a cantilever roof allows you to do is all the loading on this side of the roof that would extend, for instance, from, this is the profile of the meeting room looking at it from the woods. This section of roof right here, if you were to use this roof to support this load here, you would have to reinforce this section of roof because you would be increasing the load on this roof. But with a cantilevered truss, you're taking the load that would be on this section of the roof here, and you're putting it down on the load-bearing wall right here. So you do not have to reinforce any of the existing roof. On this diagram here, this shows the same cantilevered roof design, and this is the same cantilevered roof design. Now, as you move into and on the other roof in this section here, you are not increasing the load on the roof. You are changing the direction of the load. All this load right through here is equally distributed on the existing roof. You will perhaps have to reinforce the roof at about the midway section on the valley. But an engineer would be better to look at that. And the reason that I'm just bringing that out is to reinforce the roof in these areas. There's a lot of simple, very economic ways to do that. It's not, when you say reinforcing the roof, it's not a booger booger thing. It's very, very straightforward and economic. Now, I went ahead and had the engineer that designed this stuff, they priced it out, and to do all of this roof here in trusses, like I've demonstrated, the bill would be $45,000 to buy all the trusses. And if you wanted to then use the figure of $200 a square to cover the plywood and the shingles, you're at about $70,000 to provide a roof. We haven't factored in the labor. So let's be generous and say $70,000 for labor. That's $140,000 to complete this roof. That still leaves you with 1.1 or 1.16, something like that, million to spend on whatever else you think you need to spend it on. Now, this section right here is the existing meeting room. So what I'm doing is I'm taking, this again is the side, that picture over there. We walk around this corner and we walk down the path into the meeting room. So I'm simply boxing in this path that we use to get to the meeting room. This is 1,900 square feet. The total footage that I'm creating is 4,725 feet. This is almost half of the footage that I'm creating. This is the cheapest footage in the whole building because it's simply a meeting room. It needs two walls. This wall and a door here. Or you could put a door here, you could put a door wherever you want. You could put windows in. But you only need two walls and you need a radiant slab. And what's really neat about this is the furnace room currently is located right next to this space that I'm creating here. And I've had a fellow that I've done work with for 15 years. His name's Mike Strojan. He runs Service Experts. He's done all my HVAC work at the compound. I had him come out and he looked at the furnace room and he said, no problem. You pull the oil burner out, you get rid of the oil tank, you put two gas-fired boilers in that room, you plug your masonry chimney, you don't need it anymore, you put two PVC intakes and exhaust right out the roof. So that means you do not have to build a chimney. That's a big savings too. And you don't even really have to tear the chimney down because the roof will cover it all. You can cap it at both places. He looked at the manifolding on that boiler and our water supply is more than adequate and you can just tap off of the existing manifold to pipe right into your radiant heat slab. Also, to install the air circulation, you need air circulation building like this with a number of people it can hold. You want to have air circulating all the time. So you put your air circulation system in, you put your radiant heat in, and you put your air conditioning in. The air compressors would fit back in this section here. You don't need any bathrooms for this additional space that I created. This space would seat 100 people. Why don't you need any bathrooms? Because we've got two bathrooms already there. And they already have a door that separates the meeting room from the library. And this is a 100 seat capacity meeting room. And what you need for a library is one toilet for every 50 people. So you've got it. Plus, the $250 per square foot figure that I am using to come up with my cost, that includes usable space. That means you factored in your septic system, your toilets, your water, your electrical, your heating, your insulation. All of that is in that $250 cost. So this is what I mean by this space being the cheapest space out of the total that I'm creating. This space is probably only $100 a square foot. that's a savings that can be folded into the rest of the building that you've got. Now, you will still have to add 2 bathrooms in the new section that you create in the front here. I would assume you probably locate them near the entry. In any case, it's not a problem to run the lines down the back of the building between the school and the back of the library, and create your larger leach field. So, another interesting thing, somebody said, well, they were concerned about the parking. Well, I went and I accessed the police facilities report. And the police facilities report has, on the end of this building, right here, attached to the end of the meeting room, it has a 32-foot garage. So, I'm assuming they did their work. They were going to drive a car right along this side and use this garage. That would imply to me that you have plenty of space on this side of the building to park cars. So the 10 spaces, I think it's 10 spaces, that you're losing that are on the front of this building right now, you can make up on this side of the building. So you haven't lost any of the close parking that you currently have to the building. Oh, and by the way, those bathrooms are already handicap bathrooms, so they don't need to be modified. Now, the rest of the parking area would be as depicted in the 9,600 square foot building that they had. It would be a little further away, but the distance from that parking area to any of the doors that are put in here is not any greater than the distance from Wolfboro parking area to the front door of the Wolfboro Library. So just about everything works in our favor. I mean, you're starting with 3,900 square feet that's already a library. And there's a little bit of an irony to this whole thing. My whole story, my whole demonstration is, those of us that were on the committee, after we voted to have SMP as our architect, Helen and I were the last to hold out. We really wanted Lemire, who's doing Wolfboro. But in any case, after we went with SMP, somebody on the committee turned to Christie and asked, what was so special about SMP? Why them? Why did you guys really want them? And Christie's response was that the state librarian said that they did a great job on the Durham library. And that stuck in my mind because I was thinking, what the hell, we're asking somebody to build a new library. We're not asking anybody to remodel the library. For those of you that don't know anything about the Durham library, it was a residence, a home that somebody bought, a town bought, I guess. And SMP went in and they put an addition on it and they converted the whole thing into what is a really nice library. So here I am now standing before you and I'm saying, gee, I think we got the perfect outfit for showing us how to remodel an existing library. And I think we got some really big savings. And most importantly, if this is played right, we don't need to worry about a 66% vote. So I know that there's some resistance to this. But I'm pretty certain that once an architect drew up what they want, and they don't have to follow this plan. I've got my benchmark costs in it. If somebody wants to do a study and tell me where I've made a mistake, where I've erred, where the cost increases are going to be that are going to make this substantially unattractive, and believe me, we're talking $1 million and $1.3 million of savings. So you're going to really have to find a major hole in my ability, in what I'm demonstrating here. I think it would be foolish to wait another year, another March, and then come back to this. I think we should start on this right away. It just takes some leadership, some guts, takes a good architect, takes a good construction manager. But this is really doable. If anybody has any questions, I think I could probably handle most of the questions.
Mr. Skip, is it true, or have you reviewed these things with both SMP and with Bowen, with Andre to, because you mentioned numbers, and there's, people feel confident when you actually have that vetted with some other party.
Well, I've spoken with Andre, and he was very helpful, and he confirmed, because I did not want to go any further with this if there was any doubts about the ability to use the library while this is going on. And Andre confirmed to me that in fact there'd be no reason for any sustained closure of the library while this is going on. Maybe you'd have a day or two now and then. I've spoken with Eric, and he seemed quite enthusiastic about the opportunity to show what he can do. And I stressed to him, I really don't want this to be my idea. I'm always in the background on everything I've ever done. Nobody even knows that I exist. And that would be fine with me. That would be fine with me. Take this thing, put your own stamp on it. It could look completely different. Make it cost whatever you want it to cost. Make it cost $1.7 million. I think if you are not careful, though, you're not going to realize the real advantage to this. And the real advantage is no longer a supermajority vote. And I think a lot of people are like me, and they're in the town. They're not library people. They're people that their kids have used the library. They like having a resource there. They're tired of all this stuff. They want to see the police department get built. I'm giving you enough savings so that the police department can roll on, this can roll on, it all gets put to bed. That's my only motivation. Now, there was other interesting thing that Andre pointed out to me in the conversations. And that was, this town has started with the assumption that the old library would be vacated and the police would move in. So when the police facilities committee did their study, they just accepted the library and the square footage as a given. And all they had to do was add a garage to this. But
that's not true.
Okay, well, that's my understanding, is if you've got a space,
read the report.
If you've got a space and you understand that's your space, you mean you actually studied different spaces and concluded that the library happens to fit your space perfectly? Because I'm assuming you started with the library as a given and that you just went with that space, because what I found is that if you look at a 4-person police station, you might be able to come up with a different square footage number, which might lead to a lower cost on the police facility. I mean, I don't want to take on too many fights here. I'm just letting you know that I think some assumptions have been baked in on some of the ways we've been going.
But that's a wrong assumption, in the sense that, have you read the report that was
I skimmed the report.
Oh, very lightly, I guess.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Look, Bob, I retract everything I said. The library, the police facilities report needs to be 3,900 square feet and needs to have a alleyway on it.
Have you considered the $400,000 worth of value in the existing building that was affected by lowering the cost when we went to consider the construction of a new police facility? There's $400,000 that you're not transferring anymore.
All right. I have the police report here for a new standalone building for police, since they won't be using the library. The cost is $1.318, over the cost of $940 for a police station for using the library. So you're talking about a little over $300,000 more for the police facilities report.
Yes.
So this conversation's over about the police facilities report. I'm sorry I brought it up. There's very little that we can do that I can ask SMP to do, or that I can ask Andre to do. The next step is clearly with the selectmen and the trustees as to whether they want to let SMP do a design and give a nice picture, And then maybe if people see their nice picture compared with the other nice picture that they've been looking at, and they evaluate costs and they evaluate timeframes, maybe we'll get some movement and maybe we'll get some more solid numbers. Yes.
Skip, I have a question going back to a first statement that you made about the wetlands. You said something was changed in the report, and being the author of the report, I would like you to clarify that.
Well, I read it and I didn't photocopy it, but we no longer stated that the wetlands was the reason that we could not build an addition. We mentioned it as...
We did.
Oh, you did?
It's in the report.
Well, then that makes us, see, that's another problem that the library has, in my view, and I've talked with a number. I associate with, you know, a broad range of people, and credibility.
Well,
it's non-existent in the library. Every time they come up with something, it always goes back to the ability to add on and how you can't do it because of wetlands. I wanted to eliminate that language. I thought it was a terrible credibility issue, terrible decision for anybody to make.
Jim Rines, the president of White Mountain Survey, stands by his opinion that he first laid out back in the 90s that to add on here is going to be an issue. And you will be making it a little bit larger. Your idea about putting it across the road from the current library, great, because we have extra land. 20 years down in the future, we don't have to worry about yet another Band-Aid. The floor plan of the current plan was an open floor plan that allowed the people in the library to keep track of the children and everybody. I'm not sure, and it was going to be turnkey, so I'm not sure how your prices, especially given the fact that we've already had, as taxpayers, 2 architects design libraries. That's a tremendous cost, and now to be asked to step to the line and pay for yet another architectural rendering and start all over again. As a taxpayer, not just the fact that I spent over 6 months on the library building advisory committee with you, but as a taxpayer, that's really frustrating to be asked to start all over again.
I'll take it as a no vote. Okay, that's great. We're talking about $1.3 million in savings. If you don't want
savings, but how much have we already spent on architectural fees?
I think it was $15,000 for SM.
That's our tax money.
No, it was more.
Oh, we spent more than that.
More.
Should have gone with Lemire, because I knew.
And we have plans, and we're ready to go.
Yeah, Skip, I'm not sure that going ahead with your plan to use the money that's already been set aside would keep us from having to have a 2/3 vote. It seems to me that anytime you have a project of this size, you have to vote on the gross cost of it, and that kicks it into being a 2/3 vote instead of a 50% vote.
You might be right, but I know that we've got the authority to use the money that's already been appropriated for construction purposes. And I know that we've created warrant articles as high as $500,000 to buy a fire truck. So I'm just assuming that we could create a warrant article. We create capital reserve fund. You could do it like this. You could create a capital reserve fund for $500,000. A warrant article for that, and then they'd be able to use that, because we do that. That's what we've done.
It depends on the wording in it. The wording in some of the capital reserve amounts that have been set aside in past years has been that they cannot be used until the overall project has been approved. And in order to get the overall project approved, you need a 2/3 vote.
Well, then that means you're probably never going to get a library, though. I mean, the library that we've built in the past has been through warrant articles and capital appropriations set aside. Nobody has ever been able to create a 66% majority for the library that we use now. And I was on the budget committee when we were making the appropriations for the library, for the capital reserve funds.
Can one of the selectmen tell us? My understanding was that only a bond issue needed the 66%.
That's what I had done.
Over 200,000.
My understanding
my recollection is, it's, the reason you require a supermajority is because you are committing the town in future years to a certain expenditure. There is a threshold amount, but it's the multi-year requirement that requires a 2/3.
So let me make sure I understand. Are you saying that we could not come up with a warrant article for $500,000 for create a capital reserve fund for $500,000 in March, if that's what we thought we needed, and access that?
Well, you can. What you cannot do is without a supermajority, commit the town to future year expenditures.
Oh, so that's for
to pay
bonds
them.
then? For
Yes.
bonds?
Yes.
Okay, fine, yeah, that's what I thought. Yes, go ahead.
Actually, Skip, this is Anthony Mendo from SMP is here. Anthony, time frame and perhaps, and I don't mean to pin you down at all, time frame and perhaps a dollar cost to take Skip's concept and then work with what we have with the existing physical plan and how the existing physical plan could be relaid out, because we're talking at least at this juncture, we're talking about a shell. Well, and I don't mean to intervene you, but we could put a Butler building across the street and have a shell.
Right.
It all comes down to the inner workings of the library. Is this going to be a month project, a 2-month project? And just a ballpark idea what costs are going to be entailed.
Certainly, thank you. What we think that Skip's approach is got some value and logic to it. Utilizing an existing structure is kind of the Yankee in us, so we respect that. And so to answer your question, I think that just a step one schematic design of how it would lay out, what all the effects would be, both structurally, parking wise, to come up with a plan that suits the library's program, should be done. If the library and select board wishes to investigate it further, that kind of effort usually, 2 months, and mainly it's because of the meetings. It's, reviews and design and coming back and presenting. It's a back and forth, so close to 2 months, and I'd be hard pressed to settle on a number right now unless we come up with a clear scope of work, because if we could back a few things out and save you some money, but in the vicinity of $18,000 to do a clear schematic study with some engineering input on systems, structural, civil, site plan, and the architecture would all be entailed in that.
Would that be several different roof designs then? Could you draw us, this, like I said, this was just because it tied in, we're cheaper to that.
Yes, and obviously, this is one approach right here that Skip's offered. Like anything, there are multiple ways to look at it, and our team would offer up multiple different approaches and different roof lines, and that could be utilized. So yes, there would be likely 3 or 4 different floor plan arrangements and probably 2 or 3 different roof form concepts.
Right, because this is the street side right now, but you could make the street side look like this. You could do it. I did it on this. You could do it here.
You can do a whole bunch
So you could have, that could be a very impressive building right close to the road. We had one architect come in and say, hey, you want your library close to the road, you want it to say, here we are, we're smart people, we have a library. That would be a lot more impressive than the all roof black side that you see there. If you could do that, and you could put scissor truss in there so you could give it, so when you walked in, you get a much higher ceiling area. Well, of course there are costs to that, but Go ahead, sorry.
No, thank you. It would be very impressive having that profile gable end right close to the road like that. Impressive is a big word, and it would be a big facade. So I would say that given what we heard from the community last design of trying to have the building fit in and be more traditional in design details, that would contradict it. So we would look to a different form, of which I think you're open to. The last thing I'd like to add, since I'm offering, thank you for your kind comments about Durham. Durham Public Library is a very successful project, and yet utilizing the home that was, part of the requirement did not save the town or the library anything. It only cost them, because it's easier building something new that's clean and fresh and new. It's very efficient and fast. Time is money. Utilizing this existing home that was a lovely home meant that we needed to do a lot of rework in that space to make it commercial accessible, and then blend the new building in with the old building. And so there was a lot of time and attention given to that, not just for us, but with Bowen. And it worked really well because it was in a neighborhood. But I don't think it saved anything, and I just want to be clear on that.
Do you think this would save anything?
I would look to Andre to tell you that.
Well, we're starting with 3,900 square feet that is already a library.
You're right, but you're still going, with our design, we're likely going to make adjustments to that existing layout, and that's going to be, it's going to require some renovations in that money.
Okay, so then I would suggest that if you're going to be doing the work and you're going to be giving us several options, that you go ahead and you do this, what I've illustrated here, and you show us where I erred and why it would be much more than the 1.3 that I'm suggesting it would be. It really wouldn't be fair to come up and design something completely different with a completely different roof line and maintain that now we're looking at $2 million. I mean, if we're going to play fair, we need to do my study, do my roof line, price it out in the mix of what you're going to do, so that I would like to know where I was wrong. If this is what's coming down, if we're going to make these kind of suggestions, I want to know the facts. Yeah, Dave.
Skip, first I want to congratulate you and thank you for the work you've done. You did a lot of hard work here, and that's again, you're a bulldog and you know how to get things done, and you get, but sometimes you do get tunnel vision. And I want to address a couple things that you did say. First on the wetlands, because I did look at the letter again from Jim Rines. And what Jim Rines was saying is if you go to fill wetlands on that site, they're going to look at how you can mitigate, or you have other alternatives. And because we had the alternative across the street, but in your design, I think you've tightened it up so much that there'd be very little wetland impact unless we put the additional driveway in to add more parking in the back of it. So that would be the question. So, and again, I don't think we ever said it was a major issue for us, in combination with the other issues, which is how do you have a construction project on both sides of your walls as you're still trying to run a library. So there's a lot of issues that came into saying, let's go to the new site. Now let's talk about the renovation of the building, because the building is still, how old is the existing building?
Part of it's from 1970 and the other part's from 1991.
So it's 40 years plus. So within that's an asset. And with regard, if you're going to go ahead and do an upgrade, well, clearly we'd want to be upgrading the floors, the windows, the mechanical systems, and the electrical systems. Electrical systems don't last. So you basically, I don't know if that cost was in, and I think that's one of the things maybe Anthony was alluding to. We've got to look at the renovation of that existing space as a real cost, and because we want this building to last for 50 years. So we can't expect a building that's 30 to 40 years old to tag onto it and go. And so I think that's something that, and again, not an error. And don't take it so personally, because you're doing a great job here. It's not like we're attacking you. I think it's a good alternative that you should look at. And again, it may either come out to be a good idea, or it may give us a choice, which is, and a lot of libraries have done very nice jobs. And again, we just talked about one there, but other ones, can tend to be choppy. And it can be, the question is, we haven't seen how the floor space would work. So getting back, we spent a lot of time on how is this gonna function over the next 50 years, and is it gonna have the flexibility, and as the library grows, and we use it for different things, so that's important. That we wanna keep that in lieu of, if we can get that space, and I think we're all willing to save money, that's not a problem. But we're looking at a 50-year project. So one of the things I always looked at, and maybe at a fault of it, is this could be a fine project, we can save money, and we can push it through based on a majority vote versus a supermajority vote. But we could do a great job. Our vision was quite a bit different. And we're talking about building a structure like this building here, something that we can be proud of for 50 years, that we spent a little bit more money, we did it properly. Unfortunately, we didn't sell it very good. We came close, 20 votes, maybe? And we did have a strong just say no crowd came out at the end, and they kind of fooled us because we didn't know we had that opposition until the last couple of weeks when all the advertising came and they shut us down. And rightfully so, because it's a major commitment, and maybe we need to do a better job selling. And I think this is a positive way to go about it, because we should look at this alternative. And if we want to just have a fine library, and we wanted to live with something that maybe not as functionally, and we can look at two structures here in town. Our school, which was done 20-some years ago, was a renovation of an existing building. And that's been really functional for us, but I still find it kind of choppy. I kind of get lost when I go through it. But it's a fine building, and we save money by doing it, and because we have to go through 6 towns, everyone did a renovation. So there's nothing wrong with that, and so this option, I think, does deserve scrutiny and looking at it. But when we built this building, we really went over the top, and we built a really nice building. Now, I don't have any problem with it. I think it's a great building because we can use it for functions like this. It's going to serve the fire department for years and the town to come. And I think that's what we're thinking about with regards to that project. The other thing, I really would like to commend that report, and don't dismean any of the work we did. We met for 6 months, almost on a regular basis, 2 times a month, had over 30 meetings. When we selected the architect, that was a request for qualifications done by on-qual. We interviewed these guys with the other guys, and they were all very well. I mean, it wasn't like it was a clear winner. They were all really excellent architects, and anyone could have done a good job, including Turner's Waller, who was here before. They did a nice job. We just thought this was the best fit for our community, and again, so not that it was a big decision, and I just wanted to kind of reiterate that. Again, thank you for the work you've done.
Well, let me stress one thing, that on these supporting walls, everything that's illustrated as a supporting wall does not mean that that wall stays. It means that it is posted and beamed, so it's maintained your still open space. So you might have a difference in ceiling heights, that could also be adjusted too. But I really think that they should look at this plan, and I would really just personally like to know where I erred, because my 250 per square foot is based on the 4,725 feet of new construction, and I think there are savings in that number, and it does not include any deconstruction, so that would not include the cost to remove the front wall, which is really the only wall.
But did it include redoing the floors, replacing the heating system, electrical?
You don't need, you've got radiant heat in the majority of the existing library. On the new section that was built in 1970, you do not have radiant heat, but you do have overhead hydronic forced air heat in that section, which, you can include that, both radiant heat and forced. The good thing about having that forced air heat that they have in the older section is you pipe your AC right into that.
So you did look at all the different
yeah, I had a guy, Mike Strojan, come in. He looked at it. We saw how the heat lines run down to the wall radiators that they have on that. He said no problem to adapt to those. You could put it in the ceiling. You could get rid of those wall registers.
Plan on replacing the electrical system?
Well, we don't need to replace the electrical system in the old part of the building, but you would need to add new electrical in the new, and that's what that 250
again,
per square foot.
We're going big on asset management, and it's something that communities don't understand. But if you own this asset and you want it to last another 50 years,
yeah. I
I would definitely have an electrician or the electrical engineer look at the electrical system, because if it's at 40 years and it's going towards 50, it is at the end of its useful life. And it may be time that all the wires need to get pulled. It may not be a big item, but it's something. You don't want to build a new building on top of an old building that has older assets. You like to bring them all up so that you know that you can plan for it going forward. Just comment, and that may be, again, not a mistake, it's just maybe being a little more conservative, and I think the town would want to make sure we plan for those things.
Sure. No, I have no objection to looking at all those.
I'm wondering if I could just get a ballpark figure, how much it would cost to get plans for Skip's proposal, and would it be turnkey like our other, which would include all the stacks, the furniture, everything that was included in that previous estimate?
Well, on the new building, we've allocated 100,000 for furniture.
Any idea, just,
Well, Anthony just threw the figure out. I thought it was $18,000 to get a
To do a
conceptual.
schematic study.
so we'd be
Once we have-
spending $18,000 to see if this would work for us?
Yeah.
Yeah, my
Once
other-
we-
That would be one of many that he's going to do.
My other question is, does the current library have central AC? I
No.
don't think it does. Okay.
Gotcha.
So with that conceptual schematic plan, we would have options for you all and us to talk about and select one, hopefully.
Yeah.
And it's more or less what we did with the past building design. Then, once we have agreement, then we would be able to have the whole team of engineers put a fee together, what it would be to do a full set of construction documents. So, to go through this process is gonna take some time, and I, you know, we're working off the idea that let's start now, of utilizing some of the funds that are already available. It's gonna put us out to, you know, more towards the end of the year before you're able to actually begin something in earnest.
It's possible that you could start in September with your foundation work, though.
Probably, yeah.
Go ahead.
How can you start without plans, though?
Yeah, how can you start without a full plan?
Oh, you definitely have to have plans first.
He'd have plans by September.
You have to have approval.
Yeah, don't we have to have approval on it first?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you're getting at.
By who?
By the voters?
No, because we have the ability already to spend money. You don't need to listen to the selectmen on whatever they require, whatever their requirements are gonna be. We have the funds that we can access now. It's already been voted on. We aren't just limited to 180,000. We have the full 400,000 that's been set aside. We have almost 300,000 that has been collected privately.
So if we went forward with this, we would be saying, okay, this is where the library will always be, and then we still have to build a new police station
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, Max.
Skip, when you said we have the 400,000, does that mean we, the town, or we, the library? Would the library trustees authorize, I mean,
Well,
how
yeah,
does that,
who does
what does that mean?
The town has over the years, the town has created a capital reserve fund.
Right.
Right now, it has $400,000 in it.
And who can spend that?
Well, that's what's so very interesting about the votes that we've had is the selectmen can access that to be spent on the library. That has already been approved. That doesn't need any vote to access that money. You can start using it for construction of the library. I wanted to make sure that was clarified. Because that allows, you know, I mean, the selectman, Chip always said publicly that he's going to demand
I can speak for
competitive.
myself.
Yeah, well, you could correct me and say where I'm wrong, but he said that he wanted to see competitive bidding for the new library. At least that's what he said at candidates night. So what is it that you did say? Maybe I got it wrong.
Well, why don't we just go with what I'm gonna say?
Fast
Because
as it comes.
elections have consequences.
Yeah.
I don't think that the selectmen ever, first things, the library trustees and the committee that's been formed need to come to some agreement before you come to the selectmen for money. Secondly, this board, I don't believe, was involved in the selection of your architect. I'm not sure what that process was. But what we'll need, or what I'll need as one selectman, and hopefully I can convince the other two, is that any money spent going forward for plans needs to be offset by the architect's fee. The way I've done projects in the past, all this design work is done premised on the fact that the architect's getting 6% or 4% or whatever your negotiated fee is. You're currently, or the committee has currently spent, or the selectmen have currently spent money going forward that's just money spent for designs. I need some contractual language that tells me that whoever you selected is gonna take whatever money you spend off their 6% fee before we start cutting checks. I'm in agreement that you probably can spend money going forward without a 66% vote, but that's gonna presume going forward it's a cash deal. So this whole library is gonna be a cash deal. There'll be no financing.
Right.
So it may push you back, but to go back to my original or the first statement I make, you guys need to make a decision what you want to do before you come to see us.
That's what we're doing right now.
I don't think you are, because I don't think you have agreement on this design. You're presenting this design to everybody here, right?
As a basis to start with.
Right. But is this design the design that's going to be what the library committee wants to do?
I wouldn't think so, no.
Well, then when you get a design.
Well, we've got to pay somebody to do drawings for us.
Then
And what you're saying essentially is if they know that's your requirement,
Yeah.
if I were just halfway smart, as these guys are, I would go ahead and figure 18,000 extra on whatever I thought I was going to
No,
be
he's going to get a
doing.
percentage of the cost. That's how it works.
I understand, so I'd inflate my cost 18,000 just to cover the, this is all just semantics that you're putting forth here. I mean, it really doesn't have any weight. If you're gonna say to an architect.
Skip. Then, if your premise is true, there's never any savings in public buildings.
Not much, no.
I saved $3.5 million on a $20 million project because we looked at every item in the building process. That's what we're expecting this project to be. I don't think you're gonna save $3 million because it's only costs $1 million. But I don't expect that they're gonna pad the bill. And if they're the kind of operation that pads the bill by 18,000, I'm not certain we're willing to cut a check in the first place.
Okay, good point.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of contracting myself, and I think you're both right. I think what you're trying to do is answer a question that maybe really can't be answered until you get to the point where it needs to be answered. I think Chip was absolutely right that, when you start out with an architect, you certainly want to have the so-called marketing part of it, the preliminary drawings and everything, to be understood to be part of the final package. But then what smooths that down is that you obviously are going to negotiate the final package, and you're going to have to do some fact-finding. And that's where you ferret out whether you're being double charged for design or not. So I think this is kind of a specious argument to get into right now.
Yeah, that's what I think it is too. Okay.
Okay, very well maybe specious, but just to finalize it, you're not going to get a check out of this board without settling that item. So come up with some sort of resolution as far as your chosen design team is concerned. They shouldn't have a problem with it. They're gonna get paid their $18,000 to do the work. If we decide, or everybody in town decides they don't want a library, they keep the 18 grand. But if we go ahead with a project.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy thing to do. I vote for SMP doing a concept on this along with 2 or 3 other ideas that they might have and come back to us in, what, a couple months, a month? How do you want to proceed? Are we able to go forward with this?
This isn't something that we can do in a vacuum, and we're not going to. We're going to do it with the library committee, the staff, and the public. So the idea that we're just going to come back in 2 months with a great idea is not the fact. So.
Well, what is the next step then, Gordon?
Well, the next step is obviously we have a trustees meeting next Thursday, and we're going to have to discuss it. This is something that we're going to want to move forward with. Okay, and You know, I'd like to have a little bit more discussion with that, because I say we haven't met since your initial thing came out. And we also have to figure out who is going to be responsible for paying the initial costs. Is it coming out of town funds? Is it going to be coming out of our private funds? Okay, and that's something we're going to need to come in from the Board of Selectmen on. Obviously, I'm not asking for it this morning because they haven't had a chance to discuss it either.
And would you suggest, Gordon, that we put all fundraising on hold?
Yes.
We have substantial pledges at this point, but it's going forward with our other plan.
Exactly.
And,
I don't know
so this is backing everything up. We don't know what will happen with the people that have said, I'll give you 10,000 or whatever, and they might just not do it.
The other thing, at this point, you don't have any kind of a report that you can show people backing up all this number that you have come out with. You don't have any plan and detail that anyone can read?
I'm a caretaker.
Pardon me?
I'm a caretaker. I've done the best I could for you. And now it's kind of up for the
Okay, so you
powers
don't
that
have
be.
anything from any of the people that you've consulted with stating that these costs are valid to what you were just explaining to us?
Actually, I have an email from the guy that did the HVAC, but I really didn't think that's necessary because...
Could Andre tell us his opinion?
Sure, I can give you an opinion. I think that Skip has a valid proposal that will save some amount of money. Because you do have a building with decent bones, and there's square footage that you can reuse. We may disagree on how much you'll save, but I think you'll save something ultimately. So I think the library trustees and the select board have to look at, is it worth spending some money to find out how much we can save? There are challenges in reusing a building. The very clever cantilever trusses help the situation, but you are going to be transferring loads down to existing foundations. And, you know, codes have changed so much from when the library was built. So engineers have to look at and see, you know, are the foundations adequate to take the additional roof loads and things like that? You know, I couldn't tell you, and nor can Skip, as to whether those are doable or not. That has to be looked at in a study. But I really commend Skip for, Skip, I'm partner Skip, for looking at this and coming up with an idea that I think he's just trying to help the town gain a library. And I don't know whether this is the best idea or the other one is the best. But you have to look at, is spending some money worth the ability to at least say, hey, we took a real hard look at a good idea, and here are the final numbers, and then you can make an informed decision. I know there's a long-winded answer, but...
I'm sort of just an outsider on this because I haven't sat on any committees or anything. But I would say that the questions you raise in pertaining to the use of this building should have been part of an analysis right from the get-go. I never really understood how we became so wedded to a new building without fully exploring the possibility of using this building. And I've always been perplexed over that. I'm not saying that completing a preliminary analysis of using this building will ultimately lead to using this building. I don't know about that. But it just always struck me as a little bit errant that we didn't really start here before we got to the point where we started to give a lot of consideration to new buildings. I would strongly encourage the Board of Trustees just to at least look at this and try to look at it as economically as possible, but certainly look at it so that we can either rule in or out about using this building.
Just for point of illustration.
We did.
Those go back to 2005.
Yeah.
That's an addition to the library in 2005.
Right.
at which time it was suggested that we wouldn't add on to the existing building, that it really should have been a new building.
Okay.
So the issue is not new, and the issue it's not a question, the issue has not been looked at.
Yeah.
It's just a different,
Well, no, the difference though is where the devil is, because this plan is using pretty much the footprint except for that little addition where the cutout.
well, so is this one.
Whereas this one seems to be going out quite a ways.
I'm just, the point I'm making is that I'm not advocating this one, I'm not advocating that one.
Okay.
But it's not something that existed in a vacuum.
All right, I stand corrected. I think that this should be at least pursued.
Thank you.
We also looked at, would it have been possible with the current library to go up
Well, I
a
remember
second
that.
floor,
That's
and-
apparently not on the
and
table.
that
That's
was
not on
not
the table.
something we could do.
It's the loading and all
So
that
that,
business.
we really did look quite closely.
For loading, as Andre pointed out about the foundation, this could be done in such a way that the forward wall, this wall right here, you would simply pour a new footer in front of it, and you'd use posts to carry the load. And so you would leave the existing front wall in place, and you would leave the load that wall currently carries. It wouldn't be carrying any added load. In other words, you take out the wall, you replace it with posts and beams, so that foundation is just holding the same load that it held before. Actually, it'd be holding less because of the roof design. And you'd be putting in a new footer and new posts right in front of that. Yeah.
Just as a point of clarification, I agree, Skip. However, the realities are that the structural code and the structural engineer that's going to be responsible for the longevity of your building and the reliability of it is forced to do a full building structural analysis. You can't just look at a single point load and look at that. He's going to be forced to look at the whole building and what the new concept is and how it affects the old. So that is an added cost that you're going to incur if this goes forward. And I'm sorry, but that's the fact, and I can't argue it.
No, but I still keep, being the layman that I am, I'm looking at $1.3 million in savings. My base cost is 1.3 for this. The new library is going to be $1.3 million more.
It's not turnkey. It wouldn't be turnkey, though. That's
I don't know what you mean by
Yes.
turnkey.
all the stacks, all the furniture, computers, everything that we had plugged into the previous plan.
You had $100,000 set aside for furnishings. You can set $100,000. What are we talking about here on dollars?
Well, I wonder if because $100,000 or $15,000, that's part of my tax dollars.
Okay, so this thing costs $1.4 million then. Yeah.
Skip, 2 questions. One, what would the total square foot be with your modification?
8625.
Okay.
It's 400 feet larger than the proposed Dearborn library, and it does not have a flat roof.
Okay.
That's very important.
And then the other question is, you've obviously spent a tremendous amount of time,
Really
and
didn't
energy,
take much time.
and thought to do this, and it appears you've spent some money too.
Yeah, it is. It's
Can
money.
you share what you've invested yourself in this so far?
No,
No?
that's irrelevant. Nobody else would have, I take the initiative because I've caught my limit of bumbling. And I think this has been a bumbling effort for the last 12 years. I mean, that's my personal view. That's why I got motivated to do that.
Can I just say something in regards to that? I don't think we bumbled for 6 or 7 months on
Okay.
that committee. But what I do want to say, and maybe this is opening up a can of worms.
Don't do it.
We do have some people in our community that are very pro-police department and want a brand-new, shiny police station because the fire department got one. We keep forgetting that this probably should have been a public safety building, so now it's almost as if the library is being forced to pay for that mistake. The library is a legitimate need in our community, and we want it to look forward, as Dave Ford said, to 25, 50 years out. We've already put, I think, a 400 square foot addition on that building in the past. And I didn't see in any of your drawings, Skip. Can you show us where the history room might be, where the computer room might be, where the kitchen would be?
Space. So it could be designed any way you want. You remove the offices that are there.
And you said that you could keep it open during construction. How would that play out if we have to have all these other things done?
Well, my suggestion would be you start with your front section and you have everybody enter in the back. Once the front foundation is poured in, then you go ahead and start using the front section again for entry, and you pour your foundation and whatnot on the back and do your excavation.
Are there any safety concerns having the public in on a construction project?
Well, they do it in New York all the time, you know.
Don't get me started there.
Good. Yeah.
I have a real concern. You've spent so much time with this and on the committee. You were on the committee that met at least 2 times a week through that summer, went on and on and on, and invested discussion. And an integral part of that library decision was the report on the police department, and you haven't read it.
No, I have read it.
You
I
said
don't
you
retain
said you
all of
skimmed
it.
a little bit of it.
I
And
skimmed it
seems to me
before I was
it's so
coming
important
here.
to have all the information when you were so involved.
I really wasn't involved with the police facilities report, but I
But
did
it was
read the
part
police facilities
of the
report and I
whole
skimmed
thing.
it. So if you're going to, you know, I mean, I'm being very honest.
You aren't the only one, though.
I'm trying to suggest that you don't need a 66% majority. If you guys want to keep going for that, go for it. Believe me, maybe you'll get it someday.
I just wanted to say for everybody who's here, it's great that there's a big crowd. This type of project for the town, I think it's important that as many people as possible know what's going on, know that Skip's made this presentation. So, Joe's video is going to be available on cable next week. So if you tell everybody that you know, watch on cable.
There'll be copies at the library.
There'll be copies at the library.
You're on net.
Yep, and I will make my video available at tuftonborough.net so everybody can watch the whole thing. And I have the video when Skip came and talked just to the library trustees as well. It's available on tuftonborough.net. So I think that the more people have more information, the better. Whether you agree with Skip or don't agree with Skip, everybody should have as much information as possible. So if all of you talk to all of the people that you know who didn't come today, that would be very beneficial in the long run. So that's what I'm asking of all of you. Spread the word.
And can I just add one more thing, and this is directed to our Board of Selectmen. I think one of the pieces that has been missing, and I've been on the committees, I'm on the Capital Campaign Fund, I served on the Library Building Advisory Committee. The piece that's always been missing is a commitment on what the Board of Selectmen thinks should be done. Your commitment on moving forward. It's hard. We go police station, library, what's going on, and it'd be kind of nice just to have some kind of commitment there.
I would, the whole reason on this is that we can start moving forward with police station and the library, probably in unison, and for about the same money that we're just going to be spending on a library. Yeah.
I have a quick question. I'm not clear on the front of the building is moving out into the parking space, correct?
That's correct.
And what, from the end of the front of the building to the street, is how many feet?
I didn't measure that. I was only concerned about what we would be disturbing that's there now. And you have from the face of the building to the edge of the concrete approximately 53 feet some of that is the sidewalk and shrubbery that's directly in front of your building. So if you were to duplicate that shrubbery and sidewalk in front of the new addition, your driveway would be about 14 feet width instead of the 20. That would be what's remaining, but, yeah.
Since we're talking about driveway and access and building size and based on the site that you have, one of the things that we would be looking at if this moves into the schematic is how many parking spaces you're going to require to support a meeting room of 100 people, I think you said would be the, that itself has a requirement, and which would need to be engulfed into your existing site. Aside from that, if I can back up one step, this is not my community, but I concur that the a clear study of the existing building and its reuse is the start, is the first thing you did. And when SMP was brought on board, we were of the mind that that was done based on the drawings and renderings that were given to us from the library committee through Gordon. So there was the renovation and addition of the existing building was done. Then they also looked at building a whole new standalone building behind the existing library, slightly off-site. So in our perspective, it was already investigated and votes were made that what they wanted was a standalone building on the Dearborn site, and that's what we were specifically charged for, which is why we did not go backwards. We went to achieve what the ask was to build. So now, if the community is not really clear or not set with that, and you have to go back a step, that's why I proposed the schematic concept.
Skip, would there be enough room? I know our current library is not ADA compliant. Is there enough room? Did you plan for enough handicap parking in the very back of the building then?
Oh yeah, there's plenty. That would be plenty. As I pointed out, they were going to add a 32-foot garage to the back, and you'd have to access that. So I'm sure you could create whatever you want for close parking. Plus, none of the driveway or parking area between the building and the fire pond would be disturbed in any way. So you have plenty of access there. You could put the parking facing the building instead of facing the fire pond. Yeah, Max.
I've been to library events, Saturday readings, and often a number of people park across the street at the Dearborn property. I don't know who can answer this question, but at any point over the years when various plans were put forward, was it ever considered to do a parking lot across the street? And how feasible that would be? Because that would also, I assume, take care of the concern about filling in the wetland behind the library.
Oh, we wouldn't be filling in any wetlands with the parking. We just, in fact,
You have to bridge the wetland, is that correct?
yeah, but that's what they were going to do when they built the 9,600 square foot plan. They already had parking plan. We just follow that.
Yeah.
Same access.
But does anybody know if parking across the street was ever considered, or?
Well, no, because we assume that's
where
the police station would go. It depends on where they.
Oh, you got the police? Oh.
If we take away the library, then the police station would be located over there. It's one option.
Right, which would still be an option here.
Yeah.
An option.
Yes, Guy.
Due to my own contributions and employers over the years, I'm fortunate to get $1,250 Social Security every month. That's really good. But with my 26 years left on my mortgage and other interesting bills, I'm very concerned that anything that impacts the tax rate as an increase affects me severely. So spending a little money to save a lot of money to me might be, and I say might be, a really good thing. Many of us for whatever reason, who have not been employed in high-paying jobs over the years in town, share that opinion. Thank you.
Well, I'm trying to do every effort we can to get what we need for the best price. I mean, you know, I quoted to Paul in an email, I said, I think it was Homer that said, nothing can stop an idea whose time has come, but my wife corrected me and said it was Victor Hugo. But I know another rocker, this rocker I know, and he said, you can't always get what you want, but if you try real hard, you just might find you get what you need. And I think this gives you what you need. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make that motion. Okay.
Don't forget, tell everybody to watch the video.
Nice job, thank you. Thank you, folks.
You can have my
Thursday at 8:30.
So you're not ready to meet with
Oh dear, probably enough said. I know what I